So, I've had quite a few people request this specific video. So, let's freaking do it. Hello and welcome back to another cheeky little Trace Velo production. My name, as always, is Luke. So I have been on a bit of a mission lately, scouring the questionably authentic vendors of AliExpress and eBay for some nice, cheap ways that I can cut some of the weight out of my bike here. This basically started after I bought these cheap Chinese carbon aero handlebars up here, and there's a video there. Bing. And I kind of feel like I've been falling into this seemingly never-ending hole of cheap Chinese bike parts ever since, really. So I run a full Tiagra group set on my bike here, and I have received some hate in the comments before regarding this, but in my defense, A, this group set is pretty cheap, and B, it's pretty flippin' cheap. However, it's not the lightest on the market by any means, not even close, to be honest with you. And one of the heaviest components on the group set when you compare it to some of the higher end ones is actually the crank here. So this rude boy here comes in at a rather substantial 954 grams, which is actually nearly 40% of the weight of the entire Tiagra group set. So this area here is prime for the cheap Chinese treatment. But to be frank, there's absolutely nothing wrong with this crank here. It's completely functional, so I was a little bit hesitant to replace it at first. But if you tell yourself something enough times, a new crank set will change your life. You'll finally be happy. Then anything is possible, really. So with that in mind, let me show you the new crank that I bought myself. Right, here it is. So gaze in awe as it slowly rotates on the lid of my rice cooker. So what exactly are we looking at here? So first up, we've got a totally hollow axle spindle. You can see through it when it's on the bike actually, which is quite cool. And it's made from aluminium rather than the steel axle on their Tiagra crankset. It's also got hollowed out aluminium crank arms either side to save you a little bit of weight. But most impressive, in my opinion, is the fact that both of the chain rings are CNC'd or machined from a single billet or block of aluminium. 7075-T6 aluminium to be precise. So both chain rings are effectively one piece, which I think is pretty cool. Plus, the overall quality of the machining is pretty spot on as well. I'm hoping that comes across on camera, but either way, I am really, really impressed with the quality of this thing. And the cost of this beauty was £39.90 when I picked it up on AliExpress a few months back, or just over 50 bucks. But most importantly, what does this rather handsome crankset come in at on the scales? 711 grams, which is not too shabby at all, in my opinion. So it's time for the reveal, and let's see what this handsome new crank looks like on my bike. So here it is, and I think it looks pretty damn tasty in my opinion, but let me know what you think in the comments. But how does it stack up against the Tiagra crank it's replaced? Well, for starters, it's lighter, so it's 243 grams lighter. Admittedly, this Tiagra crank is a 52 tooth outer and a 36 tooth inner on the chain rings, whereas this is a compact crank, so it's a 50-34, so there's a few less teeth in this new crank, but decent weight savings nonetheless. And I also think this just looks a lot cooler, in my opinion, than the old Tiagra crank. So it also rides really, really nicely as well. So I've ridden it for about 500 miles or around 800 kilometers so far, and it has been fantastic. Super duper stiff, doesn't flex at all, which is great. And it shifts really, really well as well from ring to ring. I haven't had a single dropped chain since I've switched over to this crank. It is also completely free of creaks or groans, which is a massive bugbear of mine. And I think quite a lot of this is to do with the fact that, as I've mentioned, both of the chain rings here are milled or machined from a single block of aluminium. This is different from the Tiagra crank that it's replaced, because on that particular crank, both of the chain rings are separate and one is bolted onto the other. Whenever you introduce bolts into your drivetrain, this can kind of introduce the risk of additional creaks and groans. So in that respect, this crank should be, yeah, it should be golden. But not to put a massive downer on things, however, I am not convinced that everyone should rush out and buy one of these handsome looking cranks here. And here's why. So if you run Tiagra like I do, or maybe you're running a Sora group set, the one below Tiagra, then yeah, this is a fantastic upgrade, and it's a nice cheap way to drop some decent weight from your bike. But any group set above that tier and it becomes a tougher sell. For example, the latest Shimano 105 R7000 crank is already really, really decent. So for the same 50-34 tooth configuration I've got here, the 105 crank comes in at 715 grams, so nearly identical to this one. The only difference really is that the 105 crank costs 110 pounds or 140 bucks. Move to Ultegra and yeah, the battle is lost. 674 grams for the equivalent Ultegra compact crank. And Dura Ace, forget about it. That's 609 grams for the latest compact Dura Ace crank. However, once you bear in mind the actual cost of this beauty here, you realize how much of a bargain it really is. Now look at this graph. Look at this graph. So we have cost in pink and weight in blue. And you should be able to see that the cheap China crank that I've been demoing comes in third for weight, but it is by far and away the cheapest crank on this list. I mean, for one Dura Ace crank, you could get yourself 8 of these cheap Chinese cranks and still have some change. So yeah, when you stack it up directly against the competition, it kind of becomes apparent that this crank is quite an interesting proposition. So yeah, hopefully you can kind of see where I'm coming from with this crank set here. It is incredible value for what you get. And if you're maybe looking for a little bit of an upgrade, or maybe you're looking to replace some of your worn components, then this crank set here is definitely worth considering, in my opinion. But anyway, that is all for this video. So subscribe if you like this kind of stuff. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. And if you've got any questions or any comments about this crank set here, or about cranks in general, throw them down in the comments below, and I'll try to get back to as many of you as I can. Oh, and I recently hit 10,000 subscribers on this channel, which is pretty freaking bonkers, to be honest with you. I did not expect things to go this well, to be frank. But yeah, pretty cool. Pretty cool. I'm a pretty big deal these days. No, but seriously, I kind of just, yeah, I want to say thank you for all your support, and it's just really kind of cool to know that I'm just some loser in his flat throwing these together, and I've somehow found a bit of an audience. So yeah, that's just really cool, and I want to say thanks. Anyway, that is it. The show's over. Get out of here. yeah, anyway, I'll see you guys next time. This is Tascam 300. This is Trace Velo.